successful on Vinted all comes down to giving the buyer a positive experience. And if you do this well, you can find yourself earning an extra little bit of money on the side. And it's why when I do my monthly roundups, I consider Vinted one of my smaller side hustles that does generate me a little bit of income every month. In this video, I want to break down exactly how I do that. But the most important thing to remember is to always think about your buyer. Keep the process simple for them, give them the information they need, and don't give them any reason to doubt the second-hand buying process. They need to be able to trust you and other sellers on the platform, so don't be the person that misrepresents an item and leaves them feeling ripped off. I've been using Vinted consistently for a few months now to sell my decluttered clothes online, and in a typical month I'm making anywhere from about £50 to £150 doing that. Sometimes it's been less, sometimes it's been more, and for a typical month, last month for example, I made £73. I don't do this as a business. I know people do sort of the buy to sell to try and make larger amounts of money from this. I just use this as a way to generate a little extra income on the side and as a way to responsibly declutter and let go of the clothes that I am no longer using. However, if you are looking to scale this for a bigger venture, then I'm sure some of these tips will help. It all starts with making a good listing on the platform, but that isn't everything you need to do to make for a good transaction. But we'll start with that, and we'll start with photos. And I'm even going to show you what I would consider on my account a bad listing in terms of the photos and what is a good listing. A bad listing will have only one photo, and that won't show the buyer very much about the item you're trying to sell. If they can't see it from different angles and really get the detail they want, they're probably not going to commit to making the purchase. If the item doesn't look well cared for, again, it's about that trust relationship. Even if your item is priced low and you're thinking, well, I'm only asking for £1 or £2, it doesn't need to be good quality photos and so on, the buyer still probably isn't going to risk it. They're probably not going to trust you. Whereas if they see you look after your items and you take the time to make the item look cared for, they're more likely to buy from you. The item hasn't been modelled in the photographs, so as best you can, and I get this will only work for clothes that are your size or very close to your size, model the photos yourself. Take a photo of yourself wearing the item. You know, you can crop your face out if you don't want your face to be included in it, just so the person can see what it actually looks like on a person rather than on a hanger, because they can't try the item on like they would in the shop. So you're kind of doing that job for them. You're trying the item on so they can at least see what it looks like. More on why modeling the item is important later on. A bad photo will not include photos of the garment labels. Now, I don't mean tags, because you may have removed tags and worn the item, but the actual labels in the garment, just to confirm with the buyer that they can see that the size you're saying is the size of the item. But also, if you're selling designer items, they're going to want to see the labels, they're going to want to see the brand. And a bad listing doesn't include separate photos of any imperfections on the garments. So on the flip side, let's look at good photos on a good listing. So the big one is about the item being modelled. So I've already mentioned they can't try it on for themselves, so you're basically doing that bit for them, but there are other reasons why you might want to include the item being modelled. I would always say first and foremost, just the item in itself in sort of a simple room. That would probably be your bedroom. It can be taken in front of a mirror, or if you've got the availability to set up a tripod and get the photo done that way, then you can do that. Or if you've got someone that could take the photo for you, then you could do that. I personally just snap one in front of the mirror. I find that the easiest thing to do. Not only does it show the buyer what the item looks like on, but you can also show ways of styling it. You can include more than one photo if the item can be styled in different ways, and that will help the buyer to create a connection with whether they think this item is suitable for them, because it is much harder to tell what it looks like just off the hanger. So you're more likely to encourage a sale if the item is styled in different ways and the person can actually see how they would be able to wear it. Then you're going to want to include some photos of the garment on the hanger, but from different angles, not just the front. Make sure you get the back, and then close-ups on any nice detailing. So if it's got frilly cuffs, for example, get an up close on the frilly cuffs. If it's got some nice lace detailing, get a close up on that, just so they can really appreciate it. This is your opportunity to showcase and sell the garment. Make sure you include photos of the garment labels, as I've said before, for sizing and to confirm brands. On designer items as well, you can also do close-ups on buttons and zips and straps, anything that may also have the branding on there, because it just reinforces with the buyer that it is a designer item and the branding can be seen across the product in different ways. Now, this this is an important one, and this is the one about developing trust with your buyers. You have got to make it clear where there are imperfections on your item. We are not trying to trick people into buying items that we say are amazing even when they're not. We want them to trust the second-hand buying process. Don't be the person that ruins someone's experience and makes them not want to buy second-hand again. If the item has imperfections on it, take photos of those imperfections in separate photos. You do get, I think, 10 photos you can upload to Vinted, so you've got lots of opportunity here. And just make sure you direct them to those photos when you write your description below. That way you're covered. They're not going to receive the item and be shocked and then return it, and then you've got to go through the whole faff of returning it. You're not going to get yourself any negative feedback. So just be upfront and honest and make sure your price reflects that. We'll talk more on pricing in a moment. Then make sure you're using good lighting for your photos. So I always take my photos in natural lighting in the daytime. Don't take photos at night in the dark. The colours don't come across as well. And generally the pictures don't look as good. I've seen it before on some listings, particularly in the winter where here we don't get too much daylight. And so if someone's getting home from work and they're thinking, oh, I'll just snap a few bits on Vinted, but they're doing their photos in the dark under artificial lighting, it just doesn't look as good. So as best you can, take your photos in the daylight with good lighting. And then just be aware of the aspect ratio that they use on Vinted photos. So they are square, just like Instagram. So you can take a photo on your phone and then crop it to a square, but if you want to be sure that you've got everything in frame and that you're not going to crop off anything that you need, I always just change my camera to take the photo as a 1:1 ratio or as a square, and then go ahead and take that photo rather than cropping it later on. And then it just makes it easier to upload if you've already got it in the correct crop and you don't have to go in and edit it. The next most important thing is the description you write about your item. I can't tell you how many times I've opened a listing and I've just been completely discouraged to buy it because it's so clear that the person could not be bothered to write a good description. So I'm writing nice white top. That tells me nothing and I'm not going to buy it. And if they've then not even supported that with photos that tell me a bit of information about the item, again, it's not encouraging me to buy. Your description doesn't have to be an essay. It can be very short and to the point. Mine is usually very brief, but it tells the buyer what they need to know about the item. Vinted makes you fill in certain information, for example, the shop it's from or the size. So I don't bother repeating what store or brand it's from, but I do confirm the sizing because Vinted match up their small, medium, large and so on with given dress sizes. So in the UK, they put a small as an 8 and a medium as a 10 and a large as a 12. But if you've ever bought clothing that's small, medium and large, you will know that they don't always align. So I just confirm sizing with my buyer. I pretty much use the same basic structure for my descriptions, and you will see that from the examples I'm going to give, but for particular items where I feel like it's got some really nice unique selling points, I will just add a bit more to the description where I feel necessary. But a very simple one would be UK size 8, true to size, good condition. So I'm confirming what size the item is, but I'm also saying that it's true to size. So if I am a size 8, or if I have been a size 8 and I wore this item when I was a size 8 and it fitted, then I would say that is true to size. That means the person buying it knows that it's a size 8, but they are getting a size 8, because we all know dress sizes from one place to the other really fluctuate. So it just gives them a bit more confidence in the item. And then I'm just saying good condition, because it is, but hopefully if I've taken good photos, they'll be able to see that from the photos. Another example would be UK small, and then I would say would suit UK 8 to 10. So if I've worn that when I'm about a size 8 or a 10 and it fitted me, then I'm just confirming that with the buyer, because a small automatically goes up as an 8, but if it's more like an 8 to 10, which some smalls are, they're more like a bracket rather than just one set size, I will just make that clear. But this one's also particularly useful if you're saying it's a small, but it doesn't match what Vinted corresponds that to. So if it's got a small in the label, but you think it's a small that is more like a 10 or a 12, you can just reinforce that in your listing so that the person doesn't end up buying the item thinking it's a small and an 8, and they get it and they're disappointed because it's clearly too big for them. It's just about giving the buyer the information they need so they can make a purchase that's suitable for them and they're not disappointed. Another example would be UK size 10, runs a little big, would suit size 10 to 12. So if the label says size 10, but you're sort of top end of a 10 going into a 12, or you know you're a 12, you might make that clear with your buyer using runs a little big or runs a little small. And when I use that statement, I always make sure I suggest what size I think it would fit. So I wouldn't put size 10 and then runs a little big, because I'm not really indicating then who it's suitable for, and no one's going to buy that. I'm going to put size 10, runs a little big, would suit size 10 to 12, or if it feels like a whole dress size bigger, I would say would suit size 12, just so the person looking at that item doesn't end up with something that's not going to work for them. That's really all the sizing comments I put in my description. Then there's the only worn once. Vinted has listing options to do with the condition. So they have satisfactory, good, very good. Then they have new without tags for an item you've bought, remove the tags but never ended up wearing, and then new with tags. So speaks for itself. It's a new item and all of the original tags are still attached. They don't have an option for only worn once. So it's very nearly new without tags, but you've only got one wear out of it. So putting only worn once in your listing does just indicate that. Obviously, again, this is a trust thing. You're only going to use only worn once when it's an item you've only worn once, and it is basically in new condition. And then you should also remember to include an indication for any imperfections in the item. So I will say something like UK size 8, true to size, small mark on the shoulder, and then I'll put in brackets, see photos, otherwise very good condition. So they know there's nothing wrong with the garment, it's not faulty, there's not a hole in it, or a zip doesn't work, or a missing button or something like that. There is just a small mark on the shoulder, and I will make sure that there is a photo of that mark. And if you want to make it clear that it is a really small mark, put something in the picture for a frame of reference. Usually your finger works. Just point to the mark on the garment as you take the photo, and they can see how big it is compared to your finger. If it's like the smallest thing, they'll go, oh, that's tiny. Or you could hold something like a coin next to it if you really wanted to, but I generally just point, and that way it gives some sort of scale reference of how big the mark is. But that way you're making it totally clear, you're being completely transparent, and then the person buying that item is going to know what they're getting, and then you can rest assured when they buy it, you don't have to worry that they're bothered by that mark, because they know it's there. Whereas if you hadn't mentioned it and then you send it, you've then got to worry that they're going to go, well, you didn't mention the mark in the listing, and then you've got to deal with all the returns and all of that. So it's really not worth it. So make sure you include it in your description as well about any imperfections. Then in your descriptions, if you want to, if there's anything extra that you think may help sell the item, then just add them in. So some examples that I've used before is skirt is fully lined. So if you've got a nice dress and the skirt part of it has lining underneath, or 2 or 3 layers, I make that really clear. Dress fastens at the back or at the side with a zip and a hook and eye. Those are worth mentioning as well. Or if there's any sort of elasticated parts, elasticated waist, elasticated back, I make sure I mention that too. Skirt has pockets, jacket has pockets, 1 on either side, 2 on either side. Whatever your garment has, just let them know about that extra detail. Or if it's got fake pockets, make sure you tell them that as well. So if you've got a blazer that looks like it's got pockets but actually it's not, make sure you tell them in the description, because they'll look at the photos and think it's got pockets, and if it's not, they might be a bit disappointed by that. You could draw attention to any detailing, lace detailing, embellishment, frills, logos, slogans, whatever it is. Draw their attention to those things that make the item stand out. And as with the photos, there's even been times where I've suggested how to style it. For example, I had a dress just with straps, and I believe in the listing I just wore it as is, and I put in the description you can wear it as is, but it also looks really nice with a t-shirt or a long sleeve underneath, styled as a pinafore dress. So I just made sure to mention that, because the person looking at the listing may not have thought to style it that way, and it might be exactly what they're looking for. If you've included it in your photos, you might not need to include it in the description as well. You might go for one or the other. Now, let's talk pricing. The first thing that I want to mention, unless you've got some sort of vintage item that has increased in value, even if your item is new with tags, you are not going to get the price you paid back for it, especially if that item is still available in stores. I hate to be the person to break it to you, but I see so many listings, particularly designer items, where they have listed it for the same price that's on the tag, and they've shown the tag to sort of confirm it's worth that much. But if anything, I think it almost has the reverse effect, because people are going to say, well, if I can buy one for brand new from the shop, where I've got the security of trying it on, returning it if I need to, knowing I'll get a refund, knowing it's come from a store rather than from someone's house, and you don't know what someone's home is like. They may smoke, they may have pets, their house may be quite dirty. Like, you honestly have no idea from just the photos they put of the listing. they're probably not going to trust that, particularly with an expensive item, when they can get it for the same price, I guess, in a more guaranteed transaction. The only exception I can think of is someone who would rather buy secondhand so they're not contributing to additional demand rather than buying from the retailer where they're then contributing to demand. But other than that, no one is going to buy it at the asking price when they can go and buy it for themselves. As I said, in that more guaranteed scenario. And I hate to be the person to say it and I hate to be the negative, but just because that's what it was worth to you when you bought it, it doesn't mean, especially secondhand, even if it's new with tags, people are still going to view that as secondhand because they didn't buy it from the shop. It's not going to be worth the same to them. So you really need to consider what you're willing to let this item go for and basically count your losses. For your high street brands, think your H&M, your Zara, your River Island, even like Next, or supermarket brands like Tu or F&F. The platform is flooded with those. So you're not going to pull a massive amount of money. Depending on the item, I generally charge between £1 and £7 for an item, and that will depend on where it's from, how many times I've used it, the quality of the item, and even a little bit whether the item is on trend right now. That will determine how much I will sell an item for. A few examples of mine, so these were high quality items with absolutely no faults. I sold a pair of trousers that were originally H&M for £6, another pair of trousers that were Hollister for £7, a waterproof jacket from Next for £13, a pair of trousers from F&F for £3, a pair of high-waisted denim shorts from Primark for £2, and a blazer from H&M for £5. So that sort of just gives you the things that actually sold and the prices that they sold for. So those are the big things, and I just want to throw in a few extra tips and tricks that I think might be useful. So let's talk about packaging and sending your item. One way to build trust and that positive relationship with your buyers is to send the item promptly. Don't keep them waiting. As best I can, I try to send the same day, but if they've ordered late in the evening or if I've been super duper busy, I will make sure I send it the following day. And quite often that comes back in the feedback when they leave you a review, is that you were prompt and that you sent it quickly and they weren't left waiting. So that's always a really good place to start. And remember to use holiday mode if you are going away and that you're not going to be able to post something within the next 3 days, I would say. So if it's more than 3 days and you're not going to be able to send it, make sure you put holiday mode on, because you don't want to keep your buyer waiting and then have to go through that whole communication with them of, oh, I'm sorry I've let you down, I forgot to put my holiday mode on. And worst case scenario, they might cancel the order, or if they have to wait and they do buy it, they'll probably leave you a negative review. So make sure you use holiday mode. Then it comes to packaging your item. I personally have a stack of shipping bags and then a few padded envelopes, and I just keep a couple of options available to me. My shipping bags are made from recycled materials and are biodegradable, just because that's something I feel like is better for the world. But I just keep a stack of these on hand, and you might be thinking, I don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on shipping items. I'm trying to make money here. When you buy sort of kind of in bulk, I think I bought 250 and they've lasted me for about 2 years. After I've made my first few sales, it's covered the cost of those. And it means I've always got something on hand. I'm not scrambling for some way to package it. And everything looks nice when you package it because you've used proper packaging. So that's what I do. I keep a few of those on hand, and then it's so easy. You package it up and you send it same day, next day. It's much quicker. And I keep a couple of boxes, different shapes and sizes, particularly smaller ones, just in case I do happen to sell anything that's a bit of a weird size or needs extra protection in packaging, because then I don't have to go and find a new box. I've kept a box from a previous delivery I've had, and I just keep them in my wardrobe right here. So there's just sort of a few packing bits and bobs in there as well. When you do pack your item, remember to take care of the garment, check the pockets. You don't want the person on the receiving end to get your old tissue or receipt in your pocket, so do just check it, give it a once over, make sure it is as you expected it to be in your listing. Fold it up nice and neatly, don't just stuff it in there, just make it look cared for. And then if you need to, when you're sealing it up, maybe add a little bit of extra tape just so your package doesn't come undone. In transit, just all these extra ways that look after the item. And obviously take any protection precautions you need to. So if you're worried that it could get damaged, maybe wrap it twice, bubble wrap it, whatever it is you need to do. But with clothes, that's usually not the case because it's just fabric. And then when you go to send your item, I personally have been using the digital labels that you can get printed in store, simply because I don't have a printer anymore. I used to, I don't anymore. So I just use the digital label feature, and you just get given a code and then you take it to wherever you're sending it from. So if it's an Every, for me, that means I have to go to like a local newsagent. If it's Yodel, I can go to the Co-op. And then there's also those in-post compartments, and there's other ones as well. It depends what you select as the methods you're happy to send. And I know all of the ones that I use have digital printing. So I can take the item to the shop, get the label printed and send it, and I don't have to do any printing, which is really quite helpful. And my final tips outside of the actual selling, shipping process, my first one is don't upload everything at once. I often take my photos in bulk when I've got like a window of time available to me, just because that's the bit that takes the most time. It's not the descriptions or anything else. It's changing in and out of the clothes to take the modeled photos and, you know, hanging it up, turning it around, taking photos and doing all of that and making sure that's all good. That's the time consuming bit, not the uploading. So you can leave the uploading to 5 minutes in bed one night if you wanted to. As long as you've got the photos, that's the hard part done. But don't upload everything at once, because when you upload something, and I've got no proof and no science behind this, but this is just what I've noticed, when you upload something, it generates a bit of attention to your items. And even if it's not that particular item that you just uploaded that sells, other things might. So if you upload everything you've got in one go, then you'll get the attention to your listings for a while, and then it will go quiet. And then if you've not got anything to upload again, you're not sort of triggering that attention. I don't know if it's something built into the algorithm that sort of new posts get bumped to the top and then people look at your other listings. I'm not really sure. I don't know the science behind it, but it's what I've noticed. So if I've got 10 items to upload, I'll upload one every day for 10 days, and it just keeps that ball rolling. Obviously, if you've then got nothing to add, your listings will just sort of sit there until someone does search for something specifically that you're offering. But I would always say, if you've got more than one thing to upload, don't upload everything at once, because you can use it to bring attention back to your page. You can bump your listings for a fee. I've never done that, and so I can't tell you very much about it, but if you wanted to do it, you could. That is also an option. And then the final thing I'll say is to be open to offers. I think it's very easy to get stuck in the mindset of, I think this is worth £6, I want £6 for this, end of. And with some items that might very much be the case, but you've really got to find the balance and weigh it up. How much do you want for the item versus how much do you want it out of your space, and for you to physically have the money? Because whilst you're clinging to, I must get £6 for this item, you've not got that money. You've just got an item in your space. So find the balance. There have been times where I haven't even responded to offers because they've been ridiculous. They've not been fair for what the item is. There have been times where I've counter offered, and there have been times where I've just accepted the offer given. It's your call, you'll judge it where you feel comfortable, but just be open to it. Don't completely rule it out. The most offers that I accept come from older items when I've realised, well, I listed that for a £5, they're now offering me £3.50 and it's been on there for 3 months and not sold. I will probably take that, get my £3.50 and get that item out of my space. Whereas if I've got an item, usually a more expensive item, maybe listed for £25, and I can see that it's had 200 views and it's got 30 favourites, people are probably just thinking that over. They might not be ready to make a purchase of £25 straight away. But if someone comes in and then says, I'll give you £15 for it, I'm thinking, that's a £10 difference. It's had loads of views. It's even got quite a few favourites. I'm probably not going to jump at that offer straight away. I'll sit on it and see how it goes. So just something to bear in mind. But that's it for this video. I hope you found some of it useful, particularly if you're just like me and you're looking to make a bit of income on the side selling your decluttered items. I find Vinted to be the most user-friendly of all the platforms when it comes to selling clothes and some household items, some stationery bits and pieces as well, games, books, DVDs, CDs, things like that. So I hope you have found some of the info in this video useful. Let me know if you did, and if you've got any more questions, put them down below. I'll do my best to answer them. I'm not an expert. This is just from my experience using the platform for a few months. Remember to give the video a like if you found any of it useful or informative. If you're not already subscribed, you can do so by clicking this picture just here. And if you're sticking around to watch another video, I will leave one here that I think you might enjoy. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in another video soon. Until then, take care. Bye!